Welcome to the Herd and 10 podcast. Here's your host, Jake Fortinsky.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Herd and 10 podcast. I'm your host, Jake Fortinsky. You can find me on Twitter at jfortinsky NFL. I am joined by a brother, not my usual co-host, not Kevin. He is still away having too much fun on the beach rather than talking Buffalo Bills football. So I'm joined by my oldest brother, Kyle, who is just as big of a fan as myself and Kevin. So excited to have him here today. Kyle, how pumped are you after game one, after the Bills destroyed the Los Angeles Rams in LA?
Let me see if I could say it as good as you. Bills win, Bills win, Bills win. That was about as convincing as a start to the season as I've seen. Give or take a few turnovers in the first half. The second half, we just blew them away. I mean, do we really care if we even have a punter? I know going into the season, we were so worried. Obviously, we drafted Ariza, and then with the scandal, we let him go, and people were worried that we weren't going to have a punter. It didn't even matter. We just totally dominated both sides of the ball, and it was just an exceptional win. And for a team with as high of expectations as we have this year on the Bills, it was a perfect start to the season.
As Jordan Poyer said it after the game, coming to the cameras in the locker room, big dub. It was a big W, incredible game. Really, there isn't a whole lot to pick at. I mean, Kyle and I will find some things to talk about that weren't perfect, because in every game, no matter what, whether you win or lose, there's going to be mistakes. And yes, it was an incredible game. The Bills were great on offense. They were great on defense. Their special teams was smooth. I mean, they didn't have to punt once, as you already mentioned, but it was a very smooth sailing game. Albeit there were a few turnovers that maybe shouldn't have happened. But outside of that, really a super smooth game. I want to start out by talking about the defensive line. Like, this pass rush was just phenomenal. I know that, Kyle, you've talked about it for years, that you're frustrated with the defensive pass rush. We're having trouble getting pressure on the quarterback, and not everything's just about the sack. We also need to have sustained pressure. Well, the Bills did both of that. They tallied 7 sacks, and they had constant pressure. And that is just not only a key piece to obviously succeeding on the defense, but it makes the secondary's job so much simpler. A lot of people were very concerned coming into the season that the Bills don't have Tre'Davious White. They have Dane Jackson, who's not necessarily a completely proven cornerback. He's a late round draft pick, hasn't played a lot. You have 2 rookies in Elam and Benford, and you don't have a lot of proven guys playing cornerback. It's a big problem, or at least we thought it could be a problem. But after this game, after what the defensive line did, it's really not like we're asking a whole lot of these cornerbacks. What's your thought on that, Kyle? Is it that these cornerbacks were really good? Is it just that there isn't a lot of pressure on them because of how well the defensive line was playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bills, it's hard to really believe as a Bills fan that we had the number 1 defense in the league last year, because we know that we really didn't. I mean, there's certain statistics that made us the number 1 defensive team, but we knew that our run defense was very weak, our pass rush was weak, our interior defense was weak, and we addressed that. And so to your point, I think the strength of our defense last year was our secondary, and this year it probably still is our strength with Hyde and Poyer on the safety, and obviously my boy Trey White, who's going to be back soon as a top 5 corner in the league, but we're not putting as much pressure on them. And I think one of the frustrations is how much draft capital and how many resources we put into the D-line for the past 3 or 4 years to see, I would argue, basically zero results. We've had a below average defensive line for the last 4 years, despite using draft picks on Epineza, Russo, Boogie Basham. Obviously, we signed guys before like Vernon Butler, Mario Addison, just to name a few, Trent Murphy, who I don't even want to remember. But it even dates back to Mayor Williams back in the day, trying to find a solution. And if you look at our pass rush now, it's, I'm going to be surprised if we're not a top 5 in the league, which is to Sean McDermott's defense. That's what he wanted all along. He wanted a great pass rush and pressuring the QB and not relying as much on the secondary. And, again, I think our focus will be this season on, can we beat Kansas City and Mahomes? And we know that the Bills did it against Stafford without blitzing once. And the key to beating these top-end QBs like Mahomes is not blitzing. I heard a stat today that Mahomes is the best QB in the league against the blitz, and whoever was playing KC this week blitzed them 50% of the time, and they got smoked. So to have a good pass rush, by able to rush 4 and have our secondary in the nickel, I think will make a huge difference. And we just couldn't get any pressure last year rushing 4, and it absolutely, I think, hurt our chances at ever controlling some of the elite QBs. So I think it's a huge upgrade compared to last year. And I think we're finally seeing that a rotation of 8 not great pass rushers doesn't make it great. We finally got rid of those sort of long depth pieces, and we have some top end talent on the pass rush. Obviously, Von Miller and Russo, Basham are taking shape. Obviously, Jordan Phillips had an amazing game. So I think to answer your question, the pass rush is going to protect our corners. So we're not going to need to rely as much on having the best corners in the league, which we've sort of had to have with the best safeties in the league to make up for a bad pass rush.
Let's talk a little more about the defensive line here, because you noted a couple things there. Jordan Phillips, of course, great game. Von Miller, huge showing for him against his old team, his squad in the Los Angeles Rams. Jordan Phillips, firstly, on his sack, the play he made is something that you don't often see from a defensive tackle. I really want to pick this apart, okay? This is like a 350-pound monster in the middle, and he spun around their guard like a ballerina. It was truly incredible. They actually showed it as a highlight when they were highlighting the play after the fact, and they showed the spin move. Personally, I have never seen a defensive tackle pull a move like that. And I don't think the guard was expecting it at all. And he finessed his way. He spun beautifully, and he just came rushing through and drilled the Rams. Like, absolutely destroyed Stafford. It was a beautiful sack. I had to note it because this is a guy that we were missing. We had him obviously a few years ago. He left to sign a big deal. And now finally he's come back to us, and we see what we were missing. We realize that, again, nothing against Ed Oliver. I think Ed Oliver's a really good player. I think he's finally coming into his own, although I know he hurt his ankle. Hopefully he's okay. It sounds like it's a day-to-day injury. But a guy like Jordan Phillips, what he brings, we just haven't had since he was on the team. He's a big guy who can shut down the run, but he can also get to the quarterback. It's something to remember here. It's great to bring in a guy like Von Miller. Remember, we had Jerry Hughes. We've had plenty of great ends. The problem is, if they can key in on them and we don't have any interior linemen that can get through, that's where you end up with problems. That's where you're not able to have sustained pressure on the quarterback. But with a guy like Jordan Phillips, I think it just changes this line. It opens things up. So a lot of people want to say, well, having Von Miller opens things up for the rest of the line. And I believe that. I agree with it. But I also think Jordan Phillips does the exact same thing for Von Miller. I think he opens things up for him as well. I think they have another guy that they have to worry about. You can't just have one piece. You have to have multiple guys that can get to the quarterback consistently. And I think that guys like you mentioned, Rousseau, Boogie Basham, these guys are going to get way better opportunities. Epineza, all these guys are getting their licks because of guys like Von Miller and Jordan Phillips, who are really going to be leading this defensive line, I believe, for the entire season. Let's jump into our first segment here, and it's the true or false segment. Now, the true or false segment, as everyone knows who's been tuning in every week, is brought to you by Manscaped. You got to love this. You get your lawnmower, you clean everything up. You don't have to worry about cutting, nicking. You don't want to hurt the little stump. You don't want to hurt the balls. Keep everything clean. Keep everything nice. Am I right, Kyle? You love the lawnmower, huh?
It's changed my life.
It really is a life-changing experience. So if you don't have it, check out Manscaped. You can get, I believe they have the Lawnmower 4.0 now. They just keep improving every year. It gets a little smoother, a little nicer. The glide is a little slicier. Now, let's jump into it. Okay, true or false? I got two for you. Von Miller will lead the teams in sack this season.
True, you better believe. I think we saw he already got a couple of sacks in the first game, and I think there's no question he's going to lead the team. But I mean, I would have no problem if he finishes the year with 10 or 11. Rousseau or Basham or Epineza have 11 or 12 too. I don't think it's going to be a runaway. I think it's going to be a really, a team line, and I don't think it's going to be. He's not going to run away with the pass rush, but I think he's gonna get the most sacks. And his moves, I haven't seen a pass rusher like that on the Bills, I don't think ever. And it was amazing to watch, and I'm very excited to see what he does for the rest of the season.
Yeah, his bull rush on his first sack was unbelievable. And let's not forget, Von Miller is not a humongous guy. He's actually marked as a linebacker. He's not a big lineman. But his speed and obviously his strength, even being so small, it's pretty fantastic that he can bull rush and literally throw a lineman out of the way and create a sack. It's the opportunities he creates is unbelievable. However, I'm going to be going with false. I believe in Jordan Phillips. I think he will be leading the team in sacks at the end of the season. Don't get me wrong. I think Von Miller is going to have a great season. I think he's going to have double-digit sacks. I think Jordan Phillips is also going to have double-digit sacks, and I think he is going to lead the Buffalo Bills at the end of the season in sacks. He's done it before. If I'm not mistaken, when he was with the Bills in his last season, 3 years ago, he led the Bills in sacks. He had, 12 or 15? He had like a crazy amount of sacks. I think he could lead the Bills again. I think it's going to be him and Von Miller both with double digits, and I think we're going to have some guys in the high single digits. I wouldn't be surprised if we lead the league in sacks this year, and that would be something amazing. It's something I think we did when we had Mario Williams, but we have not done it for quite some time. And the amazing part about it all is that if we lead the league in sacks, it's not like the defense is even the best part of our team. The offense is still probably going to be the best part of our team. We finally seem to have the complete package, the offense and the defense, and that is something that is very rare. I mean, I've been a Bills fan now for quite some time. Kyle, you're the same. We have never seen a complete team quite like this. The fact that we can even talk about who's going to lead the team in sacks, and we have multiple guys who could do it, is something that, again, we just haven't had the luxury in a long time. And most franchises never have the luxury to talk about things like this.
I think you could argue that our defense is so good, we could almost have, I hate to say it, but a Tyrod Taylor game manager as the QB, because the defense could really keep us in games and winning us games. And then on the offensive side of the ball, we have, I'm going to say, not even arguably, I'm going to say we have the best QB in the league in Josh Allen, and one of the most potent offense. So I think it would be I wouldn't be surprised at all if we had the number one offense and the number one defense going into the postseason. And I think that's why we're unanimously considered the Super Bowl favorites, which is crazy to say because, us from Buffalo, we've been living with a chip on our shoulder from for many, many years with regards to the Bills. And it's a big change to not really be the underdog anymore, even though we feel like it because we've been an underdog for so many years. We're really not anymore. We're the heavy favorite in pretty much every game we're going to play this year. And we were even favorited against LA Rams in LA to start the season. The defending Super Bowl champs, we were favored. That's pretty wild stuff.
It's true. And I like that you bring up that we've always had a chip on our shoulder because Josh Allen may be the best quarterback in the NFL, but boy, oh boy, this guy still plays with a chip on his shoulder. Anyone who's listening to this, you've for sure seen the game by now. I mean, we're up 31-10. The guy's running the ball, lowering his shoulder, smashing over linebackers, and he's laughing about it after. There's just nothing better. I also know I was listening to the radio today, and they were talking about how when he stiff-armed the cornerback, I think it was a cornerback, he was literally laughing at the cornerback as he was stiff-arming him and throwing him to the ground. Again, I want Josh to stay safe. I want him to be durable. I want him at the end of the season. I want him in the playoffs to be healthy. But you just got to love the guy's attitude. He plays football through and through no matter what the score is. And you also noted this is a Bills defense that can keep us in games. We don't have to be dominating. And the defense did keep us in this game. They only gave up 10 points, but what do you know? We have an amazing offense that can put up 31 points and still have 3 turnovers. So pretty impressive. Let's move on to the wide receivers. True or false here? Gabe Davis will lead the team in touchdowns.
True. I think he's a big target for Josh in the end zone. I think he's going to go up against the second best corner on every team. And I think he's just money. I mean, he was wide open on that touchdown pass from Allen. It's pretty hard to believe the guy who had 4 touchdowns in the AFC Championship game would be left wide open, in the red zone. But, I mean, it's not like you're dealing with a good team. You're only dealing with the defending Super Bowl champs, and they didn't even think to cover him. So I think he's definitely going to lead the team in touchdowns, and maybe a close second to my boy Dawson Knox, who shout out to him with his big contract, much deserved. Third-round draft pick. Didn't quite meet expectations in year 1, but had some flashes, and now he's being paid like a top 5 tight end in the league. Boy, it feels good when you have a great QB. Every draft pick just pans out. Gabe Davis, 5th-round pick. Dawson Knox, 3rd-round pick. We used to say, how do the Patriots keep drafting these guys in the 4th, 5th round that end up smoking us? And now we're the big bad Bills, and we're drafting guys in the late rounds who are coming in and making differences and getting paid. So it's nice to see your own draft pick, your own player rise to the occasion, step it up and get paid. And obviously, really sad about his brother. And I think that was, at least a little bit of a blessing for their family, to get that security and get that for Dawson done before the season, which is, I think, a nice gesture by Bean.
Absolutely. Brandon Bean has handled himself so well. Obviously, he's done a hell of a job turning this franchise around, becoming a perennial playoff team, not even just a perennial playoff team, but a perennial Super Bowl contender. And he just knows how to be a proper human being, more than just a GM, more than the business. And that's all important. And all the contracts he gives out, he generally has outs, and he builds in signing bonuses to reduce cap rates. And he plays all the different money managing games to keep us within the salary cap. But he also knows when it's time to do the right thing and give a little bit of a handout to a guy who definitely deserves it. but a guy who was in real need and probably mentally needed something like that. And I think his family probably needed it as well. So it's really amazing to see that the Bills handle themselves so professionally. I mean, honestly, still the way they dealt with the Ariza situation. I mean, sure, it's frustrating for Matt Ariza and his family, and it's not a great situation. And whether it comes out that the whole scandal is true, not true, the Bills handled themselves professionally. They didn't embarrass anyone. They didn't embarrass the organization. They did what I think the fans expected them to do, and they responded quickly and efficiently. And that's how they've been with everyone. And same thing with Dawson Knox. Same thing with a lot of the good players on the Bills. If you play well, you get paid, and they don't care who they've paid and who haven't they paid and how much this guy got and how much that guy got. They pay everyone what they deserve. I mean, let's not ignore what happened with Jordan Poyer. They've already given him an increase. Now, they haven't settled the new deal, but as a nice gesture to Jordan Poyer to keep him happy, they increased his incentives by, I think, about $2 million. So assuming he performs well again this year, he'll make a couple more million. So again, they've always handled themselves really well. And you really got to appreciate that. We're not just a great team, but we're also managed appropriately. And I think the players love to play here. Let's move on.
I have one true and false for you. Don't try to get through it. Here's the true or false. Motor Singletary is our undisputed number one back.
It's a tricky one. You know, after game one, I think anyone would say yes. I'm going to say no for now. I'm going to say false. And the reason being is I have faith in James Cook. And it's funny that you should ask that. Again, anyone listening, this is not scripted. This is off the cuff, but I have a tweet from Joe DiBiase of WGR, and he notes that James Cook joins this list of RBs that have fumbled in their first career game. So let's not panic here, okay? Yes, there are some concerns with the Bills. Yes, things aren't perfect. James Cook did fumble his first and only rush of the game. But other guys have too. Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Kareem Hunt, Le'Veon Bell, Ray Rice, Steven Jackson, LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Alexander, Edgerrin James, and Jerome Bettis. That is quite the list. So I'm still hopeful and believing that James Cook is going to be a key piece in this offense. I don't think Zach Moss is, but I do think James Cook is going to be, and I think by the end of the season, him and Singletary may even be sharing almost 50-50. So no, I do not think Singletary will be the undisputed running back. So at me if you don't agree. Again, I like Singletary. I think he's a good running back. I think he looks a lot better this year. I think he's picking up exactly where he left off at the end of the season. But we have a guy named James Cook, and by the way, his brother is Dalvin, who's pretty freaking good. I think James is going to do some damage this year. Let's move on to our next segment, which is the tweet of the week, brought to you by Buffalo Beads. If you haven't checked them out, you got to check them out. I know we all buy the jerseys, we all buy the hats, but why don't we get some jewelry? Get yourself a nice beaded bracelet with Bills footballs all over it. You got to represent. They're a local company. Help them out. Buffalo Beads. You got to check them out on Instagram. You can put your orders through there. Now, tweet of the week comes from yards per pass. The Buffalo Bills are 9.5-point favorites over the Tennessee Titans. Come on, you got to love that. Call 9.5 points, baby. This is a team we lost to last year, not this season. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I think last year we were scared to play teams with good running backs because we got absolutely destroyed. We could not stop the run. So I think last year, any team, we saw it against Tennessee, we saw it against the Colts, any team with a good running game, we were trembling. We were like, please throw the ball because our secondary is good, but we can't stop the run. So I think this year, based on what we've seen in the first game, I'm not really scared anymore. I'm not scared to bring Derrick Henry on. I mean, I don't think he's going he's going anywhere this year against us.
Come on, Derek.
And
bring it on, baby.
And the best, the best thing we have against is our offense, because if Allen goes down the field and just throws touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, Tennessee's not going to be able to just run the clock out. We know Mike Vrabel, who everyone loves to talk about so much, just basically wants to run the ball all day long. But if Allen puts up a couple quick touchdowns, which I suspect he will, they're not going to be able to really rely that much on the run game. And good luck if you want to have a shootout between Ryan Tannehill and Josh Allen. I'll take my chances. And you know what? I would take the spread even if it was at 15.5.
I love the confidence. I'm feeling the exact same way. I know Tennessee's had our number in the past, but it just isn't the same Buffalo Bills team. They are so complete. Again, you want to bring on Derrick Henry, you want to run it 30 times against us, bring it on. This Bills defensive line can more than handle him. And I'm not going to say that Derrick Henry is going to have a bad game. He's still going to get his licks. He's still going to put up numbers. But he ain't running 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, because that's realistically what he would need to do to beat us. And you already said it. If we get up early on, which is probably what's going to happen, because the Titans defense, I would say, is nowhere near as impressive as the Rams. I think they're worse than the Rams defense. I don't think Josh Allen and the Bills offense is going to have any problem going up 14-0, 17-0 right off the bat. And Ryan Tannehill is going to have to carry this offense. And I just don't think he's capable of doing that. I also want to note something. There was a player last season, if anyone remembers, who really hurt the Bills, which is A.J. Brown. They don't have him anymore, so we don't have to worry about him. I don't think the Tennessee Titans are a legitimate threat. I think they're a good team, but I don't think they're as good as they were last year. I think they're a year older. I think they're a year slower, and I think the Bills are a lot better than they were last year. This is a completely different team than everyone saw last season. Now, to close out this show, I have to talk about this guy, because I wouldn't be a Bills fan. This wouldn't be a Bills show if we didn't spend some significant time talking about our boy, Josh Allen, the savior of Buffalo. Let's talk about his PFF grade from Thursday night, okay? He got a 91.5. He also had 112 passer ratings. So if any of you only track passer ratings and don't consider it a good game if it's not over 100, well, it was 112, so not to worry. But a 91.5, and that was the highest grade in week 1. Obviously, there's a game this evening, but outside of this game, that was the highest grade of the weekend. It's also the highest grade for a quarterback on Thursday Night Football. So if you think that his picks were bad or that he wasn't perfect, I hate to break it to you, but he kind of was basically perfect, and he looked incredible. And remember, he also led the game, or not the game, he led the team in rushing. So not only did he put up 4 touchdowns, he led the team in rushing with, I believe, 58 yards. Kyle, you got to just love Josh Allen at this point, right? You've already said he's the best quarterback in the league. It just seems like there's no ceiling for this guy.
I mean, and he loves to perform under the bright lights, right? He loves to see Jalen Ramsey, who said that he was trash. And meanwhile, the funny thing is, the last couple meetings, but especially Thursday night, the NFL season opener, he made Jalen Ramsey look like trash. And that's not easy to do. I think we're seeing a generational quarterback. I'm going to use that word in Allen. We've seen the likes of, obviously, Brady too much for comfort. We've seen Peyton Manning. We've seen, obviously, the rise of Mahomes. We've seen some, very good QBs in Ben Roethlisberger and Aaron Rodgers, obviously. But, I think we have that now. I think the question marks in the first couple of years are well answered. It's not just his skill set, which is off the charts, and his performance under pressure. It's his composure. It's his attitude. It's the lack of falling apart after a couple bad turnovers. He didn't come back and make some bonehead plays. He's so composed, he's so controlled, and he's a complete maniac. Like he's laughing psychotically when the Rams are just crushing him at the end of a run. And I was listening to a couple of the commentators saying that compared to Mahomes, who's sliding, at the end of every run, Al's going for the extra yard or two. And again, you have to love it. You have to love how much he loves the game and how much he gives an effort on every single play. That being said, I think they may need to tone it down a little bit. I think that I don't want him to be the lead rusher for the Bills. I'm more than happy for him to take some rushing touchdowns into the end zone, especially in the red zone, because I definitely want to see him with his ball in his hands in the red zone and not be handing it off too much, because he can run it in better than any of our running backs, obviously in addition to throwing. But I want to see them limit the first and second down runs, especially when the game is basically sealed, because you just don't want to see, somebody take a cheap shot or him get banged up more than he needs to. I agree he plays with a chip on his shoulder, but I don't really want him to get a chip on his shoulder. I want to protect him and make sure that he's still standing when the time counts. And of course, third down and 1, fourth down and 1, he can't help himself. He's always going to run. You can't. A horse is a horse. A horse wants to jump, and Allen wants to jump and leap over guys and run with the ball. You're never going to stop him. But I think we need to try and stop the meaningless runs on 1st and 10 or 2nd and 8, where he'd be better off, honestly, throwing it away and protecting himself than taking a couple extra shots. But all in all, this is the first time we've gone through so many QBs. I remember how high we were on EJ Manuel when he started this season 3-0, and how many QBs we've seen come and go over the years. But this is different. This is sustained. It's not a PFF or a passer rating in one game. He broke every record in the NFL for his passer rating in the playoffs last year. Like, this is just a continuation. I don't even know if he's better than he was last year, because how could he be? He was unbelievable in the playoffs. He scored on every single drive. He's just taking off exactly where we left off. And I think the piece we were missing, and there's still a bit of a question mark, is can we get a running game to support him? And can we keep a little bit of the pressure off of him to make every play and really will us to victory? Can a couple of the running backs step up and, of course, not fumble and take a little bit of the load off of Allen? Because right now he's a superhero. Like, he might as well wear a cape and fly off the field at the end of the game, because he's a superhero. What else can you say?
I'm getting tingles from that monologue, because this is a guy, Josh Allen, kid from Fireball, California. I think it has like 3,000 people. Gets no offers from any colleges. Applying everywhere, can't get a chance. Goes to junior college. Still from junior college, can't get any offers. He was kind of small still. All of a sudden, the kid, when he turns like 17, 18, sprouts, becomes 6'5", he's got this big arm. Still, no one wants to give him a chance. He gets a lucky break, gets to play for Wyoming, plays exceptionally well, takes them the furthest they've ever gone, is unbelievable in college. And still everyone's doubting him. No one wants to take him. They don't know. He's not accurate. He doesn't have good coaching. He comes from a small town. He can't do it. He comes to Buffalo. Comes in right away. Plays a little bit later in the season. You can see the potential. Still making bonehead plays. Year 2, looking a little better. Still bonehead plays. Year 3, big step. It's just where he's come from is truly a miracle. He is the greatest anomaly this NFL has ever seen. No one has ever seen a quarterback make the strides he's made. I think I talked about this last year on the podcast, that what he's done in terms of turning his career around, turning his completion percentage, his accuracy, the NFL has never seen this before. No one has ever taken this kind of jump from year 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. No one's ever done this before. So everything he is doing right now is completely off the book. No one's ever seen it. No one knows how to deal with him. So let's just ride his cape to the Super Bowl, baby. I know it's week 1, but I can't help myself. So everyone who's listening, get pumped up. Monday night, huge game. Remember, we will still be on at 7 o'clock. It will be a very quick episode right before the game because the Bills are on at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Buffalo at the Ralph. I still call it the Ralph, against the Tennessee Titans. And believe me, we're going to destroy them. And while we've been talking, the spread has moved to 10 points. And I will still take the Bills. 10 points, baby. I'm going with the Bills. Thank you so much. Go Bills. Thanks, Kyle, for joining the show today.
Go Bills.